Hi, welcome to Actiondyne Tutorials. My name is Matt Johnson, and I'm going to be going over a method to very quickly take a photo of your friend and convert it into a comic book. It's not really a conversion because it's not like you're tweaking knobs and suddenly a cartoon comes out. It's nothing like that, so sorry in advance if that's what you thought that this was. But we're going to be using Procreate. I'm using a iPad Pro Generation 2. And you should be able to do this even on a first generation iPad Pro, as well as some of the newer models of regular iPads that now support the wonderful Apple Pencil. Hopefully I've charged it up enough for this. So I've chosen to do a picture of Jason here in his basement. For those of you that aren't familiar with the wonderfulness of basements, I'm sorry. Moving on. Now, the picture of Jason I like here because there's expression in the face. We've looks like we've caught him in some kind of a moment. I think he's probably singing. I mean, that's just kind of what he does. This is kind of a fun one. So we're gonna turn him into kind of an illustration, like cartoony version of himself. So what I did is, for this, I actually imported the photo, and what that'll do is it'll create a new document that's the size of the photo. The same pixel dimensions. That's one way to go about it. The other would be to create a larger document and then import the photo into that, make it bigger to fill the canvas. For this tutorial, I don't think I need to go with a super high resolution. This will do just fine. But what we're going to do is start off by creating a new layer here for us to work on. And it's always a good idea to name your stuff. So we're going to call this line art. Okay. Now, I came across this method because I wanted to have several drawings to use in somewhat animation style. And hand drawing several characters and then inking and coloring is quite time consuming when you're the only artist. So going off of photos allows you to just work very quickly, and hopefully we can speed along and you can kind of see how you can get some really cool results this way. I look at it like just referencing a photo, but it's a direct reference. But there's still so much room for interpretation on what you see and how you translate that to your line work, that I don't think it's as simple as following the lines. There's definitely a little bit more to that, and we'll go over that today on how you can kind of give it a good unique look where it doesn't just look like you've traced something. It becomes you've turned it into more of an illustration kind of a thing. So on our new layer, I'm gonna just start. I like starting with the hat, and I've got a couple rules of how I do this. So let's see. The brush that I'm using is the Actiondyne Taper Line Pro 2, which is very similar to the first one. Both of those brushes I will have available on the website, actiondyneindustries.com. And when you go, just scroll down to the bottom of the page is where you should see Procreate Brushes section. And I've got the Galaxy brushes on there as well. The Nebulaction is what they're called. They're very action-oriented brushes, so allowing you to take action across the galaxy. Anyway, moving on. So let's start off with a little line here and take a look. Thickness-wise, I think that looks pretty good to me. I like having big, bold outlines. Some people might like the thin little tiny lines like that, but for this, we're going to stick with something, kind of bold and impactful, something that if you make it really small, you're still going to see the lines. So some graphic art sensibilities into our decision making here. Now this brush does change with thickness if I lighten up on the pressure. Okay, and that's where this can be kind of fun to do. Now the rules that I have for this, generally like the outside line, I'm gonna have very thick, right? To separate the character themselves from anything else. All right. And then wherever they meet, you're not going to want it not quite as thick. And I always work with one hand hovering over the iPad, doing pinch to zoom, rotating the canvas and whatnot, and it just allows you to work so much quicker. If you've ever been the person that's like this, you're lifting up your pencil and then you're putting your hand back into position and kind of going back and forth, like, you got another hand, you should use it. Also doing this, if you make a mistake, your hand is right there to do the 2-finger tap to undo. So get both of your hands in there. That's the magic of this device. If you're going to be just kind of poking around with one little finger at a time, you might as well be drawing with a mouse. Yeah, I said it. Deal with it. All right. So the cool thing about Procreate is we can just kind of hold it, get our little line there. And I know some of you are seeing that little knobby thing and it's bothering you. But don't worry. We'll hold it. We'll get a nice arc in there if we don't like the shape. And the sound effects are not optional. When you do that, you have to go. Okay, so little problem here. Like my eye is drawn to this little like knobby thing here. I'm going to switch to my eraser and just, I didn't like that. So you see the quick tap to undo. Your fingers are already right there. Instantaneous. No wasting time. Get into your art. Grab it. Move it around. That's the cool thing about this. I don't know if I entirely like that, but you know what? We're just going to take it. We're going to take it, deal with it. Too thick. Here we go. So like I want to make sure that any kind of a border between different things that'll eventually be different colors, different objects, I want the line to be a little bit thicker to show that separation. But like here where it's kind of like the ear, it's still skin, I don't want to go too crazy with how thick I have it there. It's just not necessary. And again, like I say again, I don't even know if I said it once. As you pull away, bring up on the pressure. You got to kind of find the right brush size where the pressure is just right. So we're kind of looking for edges, right? Not necessarily tracing just the outline of objects, but we're kind of looking for edges as well. Like we've got one right here. Now, this photo in particular of Jason, he's shaved. Now, I often draw him with a full beard. He usually has one. In this one, he doesn't. He actually shaved for something. I'm not sure what. But let's add that beard back in. His beard is freaking crazy, man. Let's try that. Get going down here. Bum, 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 bum. Singing helps. Oh, are you kidding me? That's right, redo paint stroke. Did you see that? It, like, did an undo. I didn't do an undo. It's Jason's fault. What the heck, man? I don't know if I like what's going on here. Let's, because I think I think we would have a little bit of that going on. Probably up the cheek there, which is going to be a thick line anyway. Before I get carried away with that, let's take a look at the nose here. Because we'd probably want to do, I'm going to turn them upside down so I can get that curve just right. Now, my wrist, if I flick my wrist, I'm naturally getting a curve, right? The way I'm holding a pencil. So why on earth would I try to go the opposite way that my wrist wants to go? Turn the image, and so you can get your natural wrist movement in there. You can always do the the old arc trick, but sometimes when it makes it perfect, it's not quite right. Because noses aren't really perfect. Sometimes it's those imperfections that give it some character. That's probably a bit too much. Yep. Hey, that's pretty good. I don't think that's quite the shape of his nose, but it's kind of fun. So we're just gonna keep it. Little blob. You just put more pressure and you're just making a big blob of ink. Now, these glasses can be kind of tough because, like, we've got these little wire frames, right, that go around the outside edge, but we still kind of want a thicker outline on the outside edge. So I'm going to put it there, that thicker line, but I'm not going to put it right here. This is going to stay kind of eyebrows. So you can either kind of go like this, fill it in later, depending on the size you're working with. I'm just going to fill these in. And if you notice, looking through glasses, depending on the prescription they have, they can kind of warp and distort things a little bit. So this is actually quite a bit. Like, look at the hat. The edge of the hat is way over there. It might actually look a little weird. So we're gonna compromise. We're gonna do it kind of in between, and it's not gonna be quite so bad. Okay, so now we've got the nose there. Now we can do the rest of the cheek. Okay. Now what I was going for here is getting this side of the cheek line and not this side, because now I'm going to thicken this side up a little bit, and that's how we can deal with making that edge a little bit thicker, because it's our outside edge. It's so hard to even see what's going on. Like it almost looks like there's a huge eyeball right here, but his eyes are closed. So drawing the eyelids, someone might just kind of do this and like, oh yeah, his eyes are closed. But there's not much more showing that than what we've got here, right? Other than you just see a line instead of his eye. But we've got some other things going for this photo that we can draw more attention to this expression that he's got on his face. We've got the lines around the eyes. Yeah, this stuff. You know, some people don't like this kind of stuff because it makes me look old. But I'm sorry, pretty much when anyone's like happy or cheerful, this stuff shows up. If you also take a look at like his mouth, like, you know, he's kind of doing this. We've got some like upward cheek movement right here, right? It's kind of, you know, kind of bulging up. Can we get away with doing something like that maybe? But doing little tiny details. We're gonna do this. No, didn't like that. So, taking a look at that now, we've got a little bit more kind of showing. Let's turn that off. See, we got more showing that he's not just got his eyes closed, but there's more of a like scrunching going on there, right? And when you are doing this, make sure you're doing it with those little tiny lines. So very, you know, delicately drag the pencil across the glass to get that. I'm gonna go ahead and fix this, make that a little thicker right there. That makes me happy. It's all about being happy. We've got some details right here. And I know I'm not going... I failed. I lost the game. What can I say? Should we give him a mouth? I think we should. I think that would be a good plan. So what's going to happen when we go to color this? We're going to drop our color, you know, somewhere in the beard, and that paint is going to start going this way. Now, if I kind of follow what's going on with his beard, there's usually a lot of dudes have this little spot right here where it just doesn't grow much. You know, some dudes rock it and they get this sort of thing going, you know, or you got the soul patch, right? But in this case, it does end up looking kind of weird having, you know, his lip and one color here, another color here, and then beard. So we're not going to do that. We're actually going to alter Jason. And this is where that like tracing mentality kind of goes out the window, because you're making a lot of decisions about how you're going to be, what you're going to be doing with this next. And for the teeth here, I try to make these kind of like small little details in between the teeth, but still define the edges, so you can see where like between the teeth I've got just a little bit of line work going, and then thicken it up around. Okay, and I'm leaving these little gaps, and why I'm doing that is because like we don't really need to draw every single edge of every tooth, right? Like when you look at someone's smile, do you like really like look at each tooth individually? No, we don't need to go overboard with the details. But also, more importantly, when we go to paint this, can drop it in any one of these teeth and the paint can flow right through that and fill in that whole area for us automatically. Let's get these other teeth. I think that's a tooth. It's hard to tell sometimes. Which way would he be? Those are teeth. depending on your lighting. Just winging it. Just winging it. Get that little curve in there. I love doing that little, you get that little thing in there and it's all good. Now we could color this area, pretty much anything, but if we actually fill that with black, it's going to draw a bit of attention to the mouth, which is another very like expressive area. You know, there's a lot of expression. And if they don't have facial hair, you know, stuff like these guys, this, do they have, you know, a dimple when they smile? That stuff can be important to get. You know, in this case, his lips are kind of, you know, doing that kind of thing. I want to make sure I get that. But if there's ever any kind of extra chance you get to draw, accentuate that, you know, make it a little more pronounced. You can have some more fun with it and almost exaggerate some of these facial expressions. So moving on to the shirt here. This is kind of a weird little spot right here with some weird little fold. And I don't know if we can just pretend that that's not there. I won't tell anyone if you don't tell that we didn't draw that. As you can see, I am not happy with any of those lines. So, as you can see here, I'm trying to draw this edge, right? And there's like a shadow right next to him. It's getting hard to see because I'm using black ink. A good way to deal with this is to go to your layers, find your photo, slide it over, duplicate. We can just turn off that original one. We'll just kind of leave that as a safety. If you go up into the magic wand, brush, whatever it is, you can pull up curves and grab the one on the left and bring it up just a tad. You can see now that edge becomes easier to see. What this is doing is it's saying whatever was black has to now be that bright. Whatever is, you grab this one, whatever was white is going to be a little bit darker actually. And that can kind of bring in those lights and darks of that photo. So your black line work now stands out a lot easier and can make this part go a lot easier when you're dealing in areas with a lot of shadow. So if we just go and this can be fun because you get to do those brush strokes where you're playing with the pressure as you're going to get these tapered lines in the shirt. But if we look at the end of these, I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, it's just kind of a blunt end. Grab the eraser. Oh my goodness. Oh, I've been drawing on the wrong layer. There we go. That's okay. We didn't do too much. So let's say we've got this curve right here, right? And then we got that blunt end, but we want to sharpen it up. Grab your eraser and just do that. You can hold it to make a line and get it just right. And you can actually taper out that line a little bit more. You try to do that by hand, and hold it that lightly, you end up getting this sort of, it's different. It's a different look. I wouldn't say bad. It's different because that kind of stuff that still has its uses. If I do a curve, is this going to make an arc for me? Excellent. So you can get stuff to come to that nice sharp point. See how that... It's so subtle. It's so subtle, and you normally wouldn't think that this would make any sort of a noticeable impact because it's such a small little thing, but it really does. I don't know if that one's bothering me too much. Okay, so let's just very quickly... let's get the rest of these done. Whether you choose to do some of the details of the clothing, I guess, is up to you. Like, I would never go in and be drawing like some logo on someone's shirt. You know, as you can see, I ignored it on the hat. It's unnecessary detail. Like, unless it's really part of the character, sure, but I think the important part here is that Jason's having fun and singing, and we want attention to be drawn just to that and not all this like detail stuff here. It's just, it doesn't need to be there. And the same thing with the shirt. Like, you could go in and add like some of these like seams and stuff like that if you want. We're gonna skip that for now, at least. Maybe we might want it later. So if we take a look at our line thickness, we've got our hat, right, which was kind of like what we first started doing our outline, right? The line that separates him from the background. But we didn't stay with that thickness. We should try to have some sort of consistency. And I'm trying to draw on now the outside of that line, and this is where it can be tough to sort of can I get an arc to do that for me? It's not too bad. You're looking for uniform thickness. So let's say I draw the initial line and then I draw another line. Trying to get it without the bumps can be a little challenging. Usually, the faster you make your brush stroke, the smoother of a line it's going to be. So sometimes going can actually get you the results you want a little bit quicker than trying to carefully, follow some line like that. You'll follow the line, but it's hard to hold your hand as steady when you're going super slow. I think I might have messed that up a little bit. Maybe I can work with it. Oh, what happened here? What is going on? Okay. I like getting a lot of expression and detail in hands as well. I like to focus on trying to keep a lot of the details in the hands and the face, and that's it. Because I think people do communicate a lot with their hands. It's hard to see what's going on with his knuckles here. That's all right. Some of this is guesswork. Maybe that knuckle is overdoing it. Fine. Good enough. Let's move on. Is this bothering some of you right here? The little knob. Let's clean that up. Let's see, we got a little too thick right here. That's a little better. Some people like to do this with a brush that does not change size whatsoever with pressure. So to make sure that like all of their outside edges are the same thickness. The problem I find is that then when you're trying to combine, you know, let's say you make 2 brush strokes and you go over, it's impossible to match the perfection of the thickness that you've got for all of your lines. And then you end up, when you're trying to fix these little things, you can never get them to match that like perfection that they have. And at that point I feel like you may as well be using vector drawing instead of bitmap. So I feel like that's why I like to use the pressure sensitivity, and you can get that a little bit of this sort of flowy effect, especially in, you know, the fingers, and you can have that detail. See, we'll do that. Fingers, yeah, you want to add a little bit of stuff to kind of get an idea of the shape. Maybe we can have a little guy there. But like even fingernails, I don't draw completely, because then it's just one more thing that you have to fill in later when you're coloring it. So I'll maybe even do that at most. I'm not sure if there's much else we can do with the hand there. Okay, so let's continue on right here. We got part of the shirt. I'm gonna get ready to do this big long edge. It's a little hard to see. We're gonna improvise. It was way off. Nope, this will be it. Yeah, okay. Sometimes it's always the third try. Okay, so I've got a little bit of like edge issues here, right? So this is an outer edge. This kind of isn't. It's separating 2 like objects or materials. I don't want to thicken this up yet because I didn't draw the other stuff. I would always go back and do that kind of second. And fingers, sometimes I'll exaggerate because I know like there's a knuckle here. So I'll kind of try to go up and around a little bit more, even if the photo doesn't show that much. It does add a lot of just, well, maybe not a lot, but at least a subtle amount of character to it. I really don't like what I'm doing with the thumb here, but that's fine. That's fine. Do our little thing there. We'll get this guy. I almost kind of like this sort of whatever's going on here. It kind of, because people have always got this, is that a thumbnail? Yeah. They've always got this sort of ridge there on their thumbs. We'll just do a few lines. The more of these little lines that we do, the more attention that's going to be brought to that part of the photo or the image when we're done. I'm going to show this to you. Let's make a new layer. So if we've got just a blank white canvas here, and I've got like 3 medium lines, and we've got a big old thick black thing, and I've got a little patch down here with a bunch of little details. All right, so I'm gonna make this really small so you can't see it. When I make it bigger, take a quick peek and see where your eyes go first. And here. Okay, some people start with this. It's like a big black, it's kind of like the biggest object. It's the darkest thing. It's contrast, right? Sometimes people might go straight to this because there's a lot of little things to inspect, because you can they may actually start here, but there's not much going on there. The eyes have been able to figure this out very quickly, so they'll probably move in this direction. They'll look at this, then that, then this. This one very quickly, this one a little bit more time, and your eyes are going to end up on here and spend the most time on it. If not be drawn to it first, then kind of going back that way. And all of this happens within just like a fraction of a second. So like, if you're like, dude, my eyes didn't look at it, like they probably did, but it's a very quick process because the brain is pretty amazing. So it's kind of about keeping the amount of detail like reined in, right? And controlling. I made my brush really big, which is kind of something I don't like to do. Sometimes I will actually see like 17%, and I'll just write it on the side there for reference. Just remember to erase it when you're done. So knowing that, you can kind of control where the eyes are going to be moving with, your line thickness and detail, you can kind of make some decisions based on that might help tell your story. And we do have some shadow in there, and I might not normally fill in a shadow area right there, but we're okay to draw some attention to the fact that he's holding some drumsticks. He's singing, he's holding drumsticks. He looks like he's about to start smacking those drums. So that's kind of cool. So it's okay to draw some attention to that in this case. Now, drawing any kind of like mechanical thing, like man-made objects with a pen that's pressure sensitive, immediately, oh my goodness, I have Do Not Disturb turned on. What is wrong with you? Airplane mode, engage. Sorry about that. It's amateur hour right now. You can immediately see the disadvantage of using a pressure sensitive pen when you get the little knobs that you gotta deal with later. And you can see here I made, one of these is way thicker than the other. Here we go. Okay. This is probably even way too thick, but that's okay. And I got another little knob there. All right. So you can see here, like, this is not as thick as this. Going from object to object instead of object to background. All right, that's kind of the idea, which means this is probably not thick enough. And if you're thinking of putting this illustration on something like a shirt, this black outline is not going to show on a black shirt. It's just not. For that case, you'd want to do another layer behind this and do some white outline work around the black. Get this little ripply thing going with the pants. Where does that drumstick taper? Close enough. Close enough. Okay, let's get our little drum guys in there. I just called them drum guys, didn't I? Yeah. Oh my. I need to soak my brain in that jar overnight again. Wait, what? There we go. I think there was a hair on this screen and it was throwing it off. It's a byproduct of having cats is that you get to have a litter box that constantly smells, and you get to have hair anywhere you want and don't want. It's pretty amazing. Again, just thickening up those outside. Now, do we draw this little bit of shirt here or not? I kind of don't think we even need to bother. I kind of think it's just one of those things that's gonna draw more attention than needed, because that's honestly just fine to me. Let's get a couple of these sort of we gotta get the actual neckline. All right. The folds can be fun. It's easy to spend a lot of time on it just because it's fun to make these, like, you know, when you get the pressure going on it, making the lines kind of thicker in the middle. But yeah, you don't want to go too nuts, or you'll end up like me. You'll end up like your father. Good. Don't ask me what that was all about. There we go. Got some fingernail stuff going on there. All right. Kool-Aid Man. Make these a little bit thicker. Okay. We're starting to get to that point in the drawing. The inevitable point where you are drawing the crotch. In many cases, this is unavoidable. Unless you know you're just not going to use that part. We're going to get to that in just a second. I just wanted to give you a little warning. So if you're easily offended by drawing crotches, now's a good time to just go leave your house and go for a walk and contemplate things, maybe. Let's just take care of that while we're there. Okay, so we've got this symbol here, right? That's blocking our view of the leg. But I don't think this is necessary to be in there. It's more so in the way. So we're gonna do our best to try kind of drawing what we think we've got here. I don't think that's too bad. Some of you might disagree, but that's fine. That's just okay. Oh, yuck. Let's try that again. Yeah, no. That's good enough. Good enough. Get a couple more of those. Where you can run into some issues around the crotch is sometimes people's pants are gonna have a lot of like this going on, right? Around here, like we've got a little bit of it going on right here. And it, you know, you can draw some of that in. It's definitely going to help kind of show like the leg is up more, you know, some stretching of the clothing and whatnot. But if you're not careful, what you end up doing is basically this. You're drawing all these lines pointing at the same spot. It's pretty much like, and his pose is perfect for this too. I mean, it's pretty much like, everyone look at the crotch. So we are going to just play it safe and just do a few of those. I don't even know if I want to do that full seam there. So as far as this drum goes, we've got a couple things going on. We got our drum mics here, a lot of little hardware, and we can't even really see the rest of the drum. And while I know what a snare drum looks like and I could draw this, do we really want to have all of these little details here? Probably not. Let's take a look at how this would be. So if I go on a new layer and I start drawing all this hardware, draw the mic, let's say there's another mic here, got the little thing here, we got the rim, your eye is drawn to this pretty quickly, and it is this, you know, is the drum the important part? Maybe, if he's about to, you know, about to hit it. That's what the story you're trying to tell. Is trying to bring attention to the drum, but we're not. I kind of just want this to be simple, so I'm just gonna make an ellipse. Say edit shape, grab it anywhere in the middle. And if you're not familiar with how to use these, if you grab any of the side, the line, I know it's hard, you can't actually see where my pen is on the screen. You can change the size and rotation. If you grab it on the dot, you're actually pulling the dot and you're stretching the whole shape. To move it, tap anywhere in the middle or even on the outside, and you can then position it just right, and that's good enough. And then another little tap. Let's get another arc in here for that inner rim. Good enough. So we still can't really see the rest of the drum here. Maybe we should draw just a little rim here. Not perfect, but good enough. And although snare drums aren't really that big, this one is. This one is, because you know what? I don't feel like drawing the bottom of that. We're not going to do it. So for you drummers out there, if this bothers you, that snare drum is way too deep, tough luck. You are just going to have to deal with it. You can draw your own snare drum however you want. You can draw glitter on it if you really feel like it. You pour some glue on your iPad and sprinkle glitter. It's amazing. Amazing. So these lines were definitely not quite where they should be. Okay. I think we've just about got everything, don't we? How do we look? So check this out a little bit better. Let's actually now remove our picture and see what we've got and see, you know, where are our eyes going. I'm drawn right away to this. That's freaking thick. What a mess. Like, you freaking amateur. So I would have to like go in and kind of erase that out and then grab the brush and kind of try to redraw it where they connect again. That's a little better. That's a little better. How'd you like that pitch change there? Got kind of excited. Are you excited? I'm excited. And again, we're adding that little bit of tapering to the end of these with the eraser. Yeah, let's do an arc. Hold it. Not quite right. Let's try a little more subtle. Did that make an arc or a line? That should do it. We'll have to do it on the other side as well. Sometimes this can be a little challenging. There, I kind of like that one. Let's get these. Because like these folds, you want them to taper out like that. Or maybe you don't. I don't care. I don't care what you do. Do whatever you want. Just don't mess with my tapered edges. It gives it a nice clean look if you go back over these again. You know, and if you look for those little, the knobs. Attack of the knobs. Alright. So this edge is, what is all this garbage here? Sorry, let's do a little maintenance here. Let's do some red. All right. So this edge, definitely thicker than this one, right? That's kind of the biggest issue I'm seeing right there. I think everything else is pretty good. Although the drumstick is, this edge should be a little bit thicker. I think that may draw more attention to it than we'd want. I'm kind of hesitant to change it. But let's just get this. Am I on the right layer? Oh, of course not. Why would you be on the right layer? You're in the middle of a tutorial. You don't want to make it look like you know what you're doing. Oh yeah, I've done this before. I actually did this tutorial once already today. And I thought, you know, I'll just use the microphone on the iPad. And then of course my hand is brushing up against it the whole time. And so it's pretty much like, yeah, so do a line. It's pretty wonderful. So yeah, I actually got to practice this basically. Now, looking at his face, I think this line separating the beard from his skin is maybe a bit much. And I'm not sure what happened there. There. That's actually kind of nice. Now, this looks kind of weird. Like, what's going on here? Let's at least do that. It's kind of hard to tell what's happening there, but glasses kind of warp things. I think I probably should have something in there. Let's taper that out. Oh, I missed one. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Good enough. Good enough. If you don't like it, deal with it. Oh, I'm sure someone noticed this a while back and it's been bothering them the whole time. There you go. Do you feel better? If so, leave it in the comments. You know, and now I fixed this initially, but now it's time to play catch up. There we go. This hand could probably use some more thickness. but I'll settle for just doing this one little finger. And yeah, good enough. All right. I think we got some decent line art going on here for our Jason, right? We should probably draw in the other part of the glasses. That's probably good. Okay. Now this is kind of a tough one because like the glasses, yeah, we want it to be thicker. But what happens if we make that the same thickness as everything else? It's a little weird, I feel like, because it's supposed to be this thin little rim. So I'm going to compromise. It's going to be a little bit thinner. And if you ever say that, you should adjust your pitch up a little. You get excited. But right now we're cool. We're cool. Oh, okay, we got some knobs here. Alrighty. I think this is looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Maybe we've got too much going on here, and this is kind of not quite so heavy metal. Oh, what did I do? Alright. I think just a subtle little bit. Oh, this thumb looks completely deranged. It's actually kind of funny looking. I think I didn't do too good on that, but I don't care. It's good enough. Alright. So let's say we're happy with our artwork, the line art anyway. I'm going to get rid of that layer because I don't want it to confuse me later. We're going to duplicate this in our layers. We're going to actually turn off that top one, and we're going to work on the bottom one. So we're going to start coloring it. Now, I kind of already have like a color scheme that I use for Jason. And we're going to just start dropping it in there. Now keep this in mind. If you're zoomed out and you're trying to do a lot of this quickly, you could end up doing this. I dropped it on one of the black lines. Wow, this actually looks kind of cool. That's not what we wanted. I'm going to undo. If you keep this top layer of line art turned on, you're not going to notice when you do that. So I like to leave that off. Why do we have that layer above it, you ask? Well, in those instances, like, hey, look at this right here. The color drop did not quite get in there. I can do that. But you ruined the line art. No, not really. That's why we have the one above it. If we turn that on, it's all fixed. Okay. Where were we? So let's finish getting the color into all of these little spots. Now to get color for Jason himself, I can actually refer back to the original photo. Remember this one above it is the lighter one. I could use that, but the colors may end up kind of washed out. I'm going to bring up my color picker, which I have assigned to that little button on the side. Procreate is very customizable. I'm not going to go over how to configure all of the gestures and stuff like that, but I definitely recommend learning how to set all that stuff up. I'm still kind of toying with what do I want in my quick menu. I think the quick menu is amazing, but I keep changing my mind on what I want it to do, and then I never quite get used to remembering what I had it set to, and it just becomes confusing. So we'll get there eventually. I don't know if I have a preferred way to set that up. It's very versatile and it's a super awesome tool. It's kind of mind-blowing. So I totally just colored that and didn't explain anything I was really doing. But I just grabbed a color from his beard and sort of dropped it on, right? And we can do the same for the skin tone. I'm going to actually grab probably some of the lighter stuff, just not like the highlight of the nose. You don't want to do that little part and grab that. Maybe this is still a little too dark. Maybe that'll do fine. Let's see how this looks. Good enough. Drop it in there. Okay. Do that to the ear. See, because I left those gaps in the fingernail, the paint filled in there. Otherwise, you would be doing a color drop for like each fingernail. So some of these decisions can be made to sort of make your job easier, but it also gives it a look. All right, so the lips. I'm gonna take the skin color that I have. My goodness, it looks like this like grayish purple. I don't care. I'm not gonna change it. Just make it a little more red. You can do whatever you want with your lips. I don't really care. I'm not telling you the way you're supposed to do it. It's just the way I'm doing it right now. So if you don't like doing it this way, don't. And we got the teeth. One thing that people usually do with teeth, they're like, "Well, what color are our teeth?" Well, they're white. Let's make white. Let's drop that in there. Holy moly, those are bright. Those are really bright. So if I want to draw any like highlights on those, you know, like when his teeth are shiny and the light hits it, there's like a little white spot on it, like we have here in the photo. So why would we make our teeth white? If we actually do this, and you know, no one be embarrassed by this, but like you take a photo and do the color picker, you're not going to get white. You're just not. But we can do it close. So we've actually got kind of like 23% saturation with like kind of a brown. So we've got kind of like an off-white, right? Like a beige color, which is actually quite normal for teeth. To not be like 100% pure white. It just doesn't happen. It's not realistic. But if we want us to be able to add highlights to this later, it can't be white because we want the highlights to be white. So maybe backing this down to like 90. Okay, and even lowering the saturation. Now technically, this is gray, but it still looks white, right? It's not too far from white. So if we go in and we do add some white highlights, you see how that works? We can still do it. Again, you're making these decisions to kind of set up the next part of it. For the sticks, let's get some kind of a lighter shade of that. Drop it on there. And I'm just gonna make the tips black. Why not? Why not? And this gray looks good for his pants. I like saving the color for just the shirt and him. For whatever reason. I don't know. For some reason I just like the pants being somewhat... I can make it a neutral thing, so I may as well. He kind of looks like he's wearing sweatpants here, doesn't he? And you know what? Jason would be really happy if we made this drum, even though it's like a weird drum, because snare drums don't look like that. And I believe that's what he's hitting there. Let's make it the same color. He'll be pretty excited. He'll probably say, "Damn right." I'm just gonna drop some gray on there. And you know what? We can actually just use the same one we did for the teeth on that. Not a big deal. Some drums have you know, a little circle in the middle there, but you know, I don't really care. We're not gonna get that carried away with the drum here. Now this actually doesn't look too bad here. So if I remove the photo and take another look at it, but I do see a little problem. I don't know if anyone else spots it. We've got a few spaces here that didn't fill in. So we're gonna grab the color picker and take care of that. We can do a drop. Oh, I missed. I have failed. Yeah, what's this? Boop. Oh, what's going on here? Okay. Because remember, it's okay for me to draw over the black lines right now, right? Because I've got that other layer above it that I'm going to turn back on. I'm just looking for those little tiny gaps to fill in. And it's something you can change with when you're doing a color drop. I do a color drop here and I slide, I don't know if you see the blue bar at the top, but when I slide my pencil back and forth, it's changing the threshold. Of course, that doesn't really change much. You can see when I bring it all the way up, it goes through those other areas and back down, leaves a little few more gaps. It's really hard to tell in that stupid example I just wasted your time with. Yep, deal with it. Deal with it. Okay. Looks like he's pretty colored. I think his skin is not quite right, but that's all right. This isn't. We're not trying to be perfect here. How can we take this up another level here? We're gonna go back to black, like AC/DC. We're back in black, and I'm gonna go hit the little N here, which is for the normal shading mode on this new layer, and I'm gonna take my opacity and bring it down to 51. It can be 50, but I know that there's some of you that want me to do 50 and that it bothers you to have it at 51, because you know what, it doesn't matter. We can go back and change it later, and we probably should. So if you're gonna take all that time to make sure it says 50, you're wasting time. So this is our shadow. Sounds ominous. We're gonna turn off the color art, so we can't see it. We're gonna turn our photo back on. And I like to do this with the line art on to get a sense of some of the stuff that wasn't in the photo, like his beard and the leg that we improvised, right? When doing the shadow part, I can just kind of brush it in and it's just gonna make that area somewhat darker. I tend to want to bring the brush size up a little bit so I can get these bigger, fatter blobs. It might not actually hurt for us to delete that and actually make another copy of the line art, right? That way we can do some color drop action. So we've got the lines of the shirt, and that can help us out. Because I can look at this and see, okay, well, oh my goodness. There we go. 51, just to bother you. You know, I can shade in these areas pretty quickly now. In this particular one, I'm gonna go with the lighting that was in the photo. If the lighting wasn't that good, you know, you may be kind of making up your own lighting for this. So I'm just gonna kind of do some kind of basic blobby shapes with this. Get a little bit of this stuff going on. There we go. Fill that in. Fill that in. And if you can see what's happening here, this is a good way to show that color drop threshold. I'm going to drop it on there and hold. See, now as I drag it up, oh, we got some glitch. Got some glitch. All right, that's pretty good. So we were getting some kind of a ring around the rosy there. It's a technical term. Not really. I just made that up. Okay. We're just gonna do a few more of these little blobs. And I'm usually not too picky of these ones if I go in and taper the edges to them. I don't know. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This feels like this is mostly in shadow. I probably went too far in that, but you know what? I don't care. That would probably, that's better. I'm kind of just trying to paint in the parts that are seemingly a little darker, right? Because our light source, we can actually see it, you know, it's over there in the corner. And so we can kind of go with that a little bit. Because we're not really doing this sort of gradual shading here, right? Got some, oh, there we go. We got this area up here that we could do. It's not very obvious in the photo, but again, we can kind of exaggerate that and get a little shadow in the hat there. Since we've got most of this side of the face all dark, let's make sure we're doing that to the hat too. Maybe we can get away with doing this and leave a little bit of the edge. So you can see how we're not going directly off the photo. You can. Sometimes it just becomes like an exercise in patience to do all these little details. But the more you do this, you start figuring out like where you can cut some corners and save some time. Because again, if you're trying to go for like a cartoony effect, like you don't want to go nuts on details. I mean, especially if this is something that you're trying to do animation with, to get caught up in all those details is time, a crazy amount of time. So it's just about working quickly. And I'm probably already going way slower than I think I wanted to on this, but I figure to learn, show you guys some stuff. That side a little dark. And we'll do that. What else? Maybe his beard at the bottom might have a little bit of shadow. Maybe this right here. Got that side of the lips. I don't want to go nuts with the teeth, because then they start looking like really weird. Maybe at least these ones inside of the mouth there, a little bit on the lip. But then you start doing too much with the mouth area and it can start looking really weird really quick. I want to get rid of... change that a little bit. I don't know, that looks a little weird. Whatever. I could toy with that for a while, but we're not going to. So we've got that layer of shadow over our line art. And right now, it's at 51%. This is where you can kind of change the opacity and change like how dramatic is that lighting. So if we take our line art, duplicate, we'll go to this one, we'll do highlights, stay this on normal. Oh look, I landed right on 50. You know what? You've earned it. I'll leave it there. And this one isn't so bad if you're using 100% white, because we're going to drop the opacity down. But again, we'll probably want to remove the color. I should rename this. I'll call it color layer. You can call it whatever you want. I don't really care. I don't. See if I care. Do whatever you want. And we can start painting in some of these edges here. I always call it painting. It's funny. There's no paint. There's no paint involved in this. There's no crying in baseball. I'm kind of just trying to get some of these edges that are on that side. We can get the nose to be show a little bit of that. And I know we're kind of going on top of that shadow there. I'm not sure how that's gonna... It usually looks like crap, but why not? We'll do a little highlight there for the lips. That's always kind of fun. We can get... We'll do a couple little highlights for the teeth. It always helps to sing a song. I sing the doop-de-doo song. And if you've never heard of it, it goes doop-de-doo. What do you think? Going for a Grammy on that one. Let me know if you want to do a cover. You can work out a licensing agreement. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. Kool-Aid Man likes it. Who remembers the Kool-Aid Man? That dude would just bust through walls. Like, who cares if there's a kid on the other side? There's like bricks flying everywhere. And that guy... Put a little dot on each of those. On each of the little drumstick things. Okay. Oop. Let's do a line. I mean, was there ever a time when the Kool-Aid Man bust through that wall and like trampled one of those kids? Because there's always those kids playing around and drinking Kool-Aid, and then he shows up. I mean, like, it kind of says like, if you're drinking Kool-Aid, don't hang out next to a brick wall, because, man, that dude will just come barreling through there like, all right. And he's just gonna... You're done. I mean, you're toast. Now, the pants aren't really that light over on that edge, but I'm kind of going with consistency here. We seem to have kind of like that. I'm just kind of going on the opposite edge with that. Maybe a little bit here, which isn't really realistic at all, but that's fine. That's fine. Would we really have that much light here? I don't know. I think it helps add a little bit of dimension sometimes if you go a little bit outside of what you see in the picture. You're kind of, you know, the other way to do it would be to just do several layers of this, so you can control which layer is, you know, like the really bright. So we pull our color layer back up, and you can see, like, while very subtle, like that certainly adds, we've got a lot of depth to our illustration now. And remove our background, and now we've actually got a pretty decent little drawing there. Not bad. Well done. If we like this, we can export it as a PNG. And if you saw, I turned off the background layer. A PNG is going to make it transparent. The background will stay gone. Some apps don't show it when you're looking at it, but any good graphics app is gonna see that transparency alpha channel, and it will maintain it. So you could then put this on top of something else and whatnot. But there you have it. Like I said, you could go through and do several layers of the shading, the shadows, the highlights, and get more of a sort of like a posterized effect, you know, different levels of it. As you keep layering each, try to go from like the darkest darks to then the lightest lights, and you can get a little bit more of like a contour in with that. But I think just even adding one, like a white layer, one black at not full opacity, can give you a pretty cool effect. And toying with it, you can even, like, if we bring this all the way up and we bring this one all the way up, I mean, we've completely changed the dynamic of what we've got here, you know. So you can kind of get some different looks. But that's that. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, I'm sorry that I wasted your time. Well, I don't know, maybe I'm not terribly sorry, but I'm thankful that you stuck around to the bitter end. You know, way to go. Thank you for watching, and this is a kind of a new thing for us at Actiondyne Industries. Please leave it in the comments if you'd like to see any other tutorials like this. If you enjoyed this and got something out of it, we'd like to hear about it. If this was a complete waste of your time, you can post that complaint with our complaint department, which is Jason. Thank you for watching.